is Amara Wynn, and this is the Writer Series Between the Margins. And thank you for showing up and watching this. Let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Today, I did an interview with an amazing, inspirational woman. I have had some great interviews with some very inspirational people who have written about topics that have made me think, and today's was no different. Her name is Barbara Latinka, and I am so moved by her books. But let's just get all the housekeeping stuff out of the way. I'm an indie author myself. This is my book right here, More Than I Expected. It does deal with issues like mental health and anxiety and stress and grief and past trauma in a very light way, but it's also a romantic comedy, contemporary romance type book. So if you're interested, please feel free to check it out. Also consider liking, subscribing, sharing with your friends. If you're watching this on YouTube, hey. If you're listening to this on a podcast like Spotify or Apple, hey. I sit down with indie authors and I talk to them about their books and what they were feeling. And we try not to do too many spoilers, but I do want to give a trigger warning for today's. Today, we're going to be talking about abuse, both physical abuse, emotional abuse, and some sexual abuse. So I do want to make sure that we put that out there for what it's worth. But I do think this is handled very gracefully, and we don't dive deep into the topic. But I do think I need to let you know that this stuff is being discussed today. So let me not babble. Let's go ahead and just move straight into Barbara's interview. I am so excited for you to hear this one today. Hello, my name is Amara Wynn, and I am here today with Barbara Latinka. Barbara is not a grandma. Much to her dismay, I did think with the name Barbara that she was going to be older, and it turns out she is very young. And I am so excited to have her. Yes, you are, because I, I have a daughter close to your age.
Well, I mean, when you put it that way, but
Right,
still.
right. Barbara recently debuted her very first books, because there's three of them. So she's a debut author, a photographer, she's a wife, and she is the homeschool mother of three children. And I am exhausted for you. Not only are you raising three children, but you're homeschooling them too. That's a lot. And for many years, you carried this story that you tell in your books in silence until you decided to write these with the quote, with a voice forged in survival. So this is going to be talking about some heavy topics today,
Yes.
because your book is very heavy, a masterpiece, beautiful,
Thank you.
thought-provoking,
Thank you.
but it's going to be a little bit heavy. But you do bring your truth to the page with honesty and grit and empathy, which is 1,000% true. And you share what it means to grow up shadowed by darkness, how to find magic in the normalcy, and how surviving sometimes looks like strange spells. Your book is probably one of the books that I've read this year that haunted me, which is funny because that's
Yes.
kind of what it's called. Um,
Ta-da!
so tell us about your book series.
So I wrote this book series, Spells for Surviving a Haunted Childhood.
Oh, I should have said that. My bad.
That's okay. No worries. It's no worries. That's my job, right? So I wrote the series, Spells for Surviving a Haunted Childhood. Specifically, it is linear with my trauma healing. So I did go through quite a haunted childhood. And in that, I mean, I grew up feeling alone, unseen, unheard. And I carried that for a really long time. And I became a mother and still continue to carry that burden. And after going through trauma therapy, my therapist recommended that I start writing my story. I've always been big into journaling and note taking and things like that, but she really inspired me and pushed me to start writing from my first memory on. And literally, my first memory is a near death experience. And the thing I'm most proud of with this series is that in part one, it's told through the lens of a child. So it's very childlike and innocent and not sure or being able to name the pain that she's going through, she being me. And in part two, it's more that teenagey, angsty, feeling alone and unheard and lost in the world, and just that rift with your parents and trying to forge and find your own name in the world. And then in part three, it's all me as an adult and what I've taken and what I've learned, and how I'm not going to continue the cycle with my children, how I'm going to break that. And it really lets you into my mind and my framework and how I did that, making sure that I separated myself from the people that were causing the most harm, that were the enablers in my life, and finding my group of people, making sure I had a safe place to do that. Then I could really start on healing. And it really lays all of that out. And I think that it comes to a close in a really beautiful way that I'm really proud of.
It does. It really does. The book that I related to the most was the second one.
That's so interesting. My daughter, like my middle child, also said that the second's her favorite. Hands down, my least favorite. But I love that. I love that it's different for everybody.
Yes, and that's what I actually gave them to a friend to read. I gave her my Kindle. It was like, here, just read this, and she related to the first one more. And even though I related to the first one, the second one I felt like was basically me as a teenager. So it was something that
Yeah.
I could take. I mean, it was, and it does. I don't want to give out too much just yet. Hang on. Let's just get there first. Okay, because I will just tell
Yes.
the whole thing. Now, you said that this was a story. Just right now, I'll just spill it all. Um, so you carry this story in silence, and that your therapist is the one that said that you should write it, which is a fantastic idea. I worked in the mental health care field. We did really encourage people to journal, to write their things out, so they can kind of get it out of their system, especially if they can't say it to the people who are the ones who were doing the hurting.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What made you think or decide that you should publish this?
Um, okay, so originally I did do it for me, and I guess more importantly than me, my children, so that they can see and reference the trials that their mother had went through. And I feel like my story is so relatable because of the depths and the instances of trauma. It's like, who doesn't have anyone in their life that battles addiction? Who hasn't had to face grief head on? Who hasn't felt unseen or unheard or alone? There's literally relatable feelings throughout this whole series. And I really started to understand that my words, the more I shared it just with people that were close to me personally, the more I realized that it's truly such a relatable story that I feel like a lot of people need to hear its message. So I decided to look into publishing it. It's actually a lifelong dream of mine, because I mean, you read part one and you're like, whoa, like none of it's metaphor. It's all literally true. Yes, my mother did leave me for the circus. Just that line in itself is book worthy, right?
But
Um,
it is.
it is.
And it makes it
Yeah.
even more interesting knowing that all of that actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought a lot of that was metaphorical.
No, no, I literally almost died in the blizzard of 1993. And my mother literally did leave me for the circus and left me in the care of my grandmother, who hated me. And then I got tossed around, and it's a blessing I didn't end up in the foster care system, but I do feel like a lot of foster kids will relate to this story, in the sense of, there's literally a scene in part one where I have my items in grocery bags, and that's it. I know that that's something that kids have to deal with. They bag up everything that they own into little trash bags, and they hop from house to house,
I do.
and just hoping that they'll find normalcy there. So that did happen to me. So I feel like that's a very relatable story for kids in foster care. I feel like it's really relatable for a lot of the 80s and 90s kids who went through life feeling unseen and unheard, and maybe even older than that. I've actually had a man who read just part one, and we spoke about it, and it brought him to tears, understanding the damage that his alcoholism had caused to his children.
Oh, wow.
And seeing it through a child's eye, the perspective of a parent being an alcoholic. So, I mean, really, if I can relate with my story with a 60-year-old man, I'm pretty sure that anyone can find something in here that speaks to them.
There were a lot of things that spoke. I myself am a latchkey kid. So I did sort of raise myself, and
Hmm. A lot of
I,
us did.
yeah,
Nothing wrong with
exactly.
it.
No,
Nothing wrong with
that's
it.
just the way that it was back then.
Hmm.
But I also was the last of four children. And I was kind of now my siblings would tell you that I was the baby, but I was also
Of
the one
course.
because I was the youngest. But
Hmm.
they were gone out of the house by the time I was coming up. And I was my very first memory, and it's just, I don't know, you don't care. And I don't know, everybody does.
Oh, I do. Absolutely. I love to hear people's personal stories.
My very first memory of my parents was being at a table, and all of us were there. I think I was like five, and they were walking around. Hey, we were doing breakfast for dinner, and there was another egg, like one egg left, and she was like, "Does anybody want this egg?" And I was like, "I do." And she's like, Anybody want this egg?" And I was like, "I do." And then she was like, "If nobody wants it," and my brother was like, "I do," and she just gave it to him, and I was like, "This is the moment where I realized that I am invisible."
Yes. And
And
that, yes, I was talking with someone the other day about that, how children's memories, like especially, you understand this more as you become a parent yourself and you look back and you realize that children, when things bother them, adults have the tendency to discard it.
a
Like, oh,
1000%.
yeah, get over it. No big deal, right? Well, true, probably not to an emotionally regulated adult, not a big deal. But to a toddler or a small child that doesn't understand or know how to name their emotions or their feelings, they just feel things and their minds are literal sponges
Yep.
and they're absorbing their self-worth based off of their interactions. The smallest little occurrence can shape the mind forever, especially at that age. So, it's absolutely valid for you to feel that way. And, if there was more evidence to back that up as you continue to grow and you continue to feel unseen, unheard, or unloved, well, of course, that's going to fuel that first memory. So, it's really important. And in that instance, I would encourage you, even that whole entire exchange, write it down.
Oh, I did.
Write it down. Yes, yes. And even
I
if you just tuck it away forever, obviously don't publish it into the world, but just write it down. It helps so much, I think, just to get stuff off of your chest and onto the paper. It's just so freeing for me.
Yeah, it made me not as angry. I wasn't as angry. And I realized, and I tell a lot of other parents this, and I think parents need to remember this, that when we do something to our child or we act a certain way, even if we're not meaning any harm, that at the end of the day, we may have gone through this with three other children, but that last child, this is the first time that they've ever experienced this.
Yes.
You've experienced it with them several times or with other children, but for them, this is brand new. It's
Mm-hmm.
like when a girl who is like 12 goes through her first heartbreak and we all just kind of go, "Oh my gosh, don't worry about it. There's other fish in the sea." This is her first time. So this is
Mm-hmm.
the biggest thing that's ever happened to her in her entire
Yes.
life. And we just kind of shoosh it away like it's
Dismiss
nothing.
it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes
Yeah.
us feel unseen.
Yeah, I oftentimes, and this is the biggest piece of parenting advice I can give you if anybody listening has teens. I have two in the house right now, two girls, and like
Oh,
we were
bless you.
talking about before you hit record, like
Bless
you
you.
reap what you sow. um, but I will say that I try to relate to them every time something happens that's new to them. And I try to think, okay, how would I feel as that 12-year-old going through that for the first time? What would I want to hear? What would I have wanted a parent or a guardian to say to me? And I do try to convey that to them to let them know, hey, your mom's human. Your mom's also gone through this. And I survived. It's okay. So, um, not to dismiss it, but to relate, to let
Yes.
them know I went through this too. And I completely understand that you're feeling just so down and upset about this. And it's okay to feel that way. Just don't stay there. Let's work through it. Let's go outside. Let's write about it. Let's do something else to get your mind off of it. My oldest, she's a baker or a crocheter. She has granny hobbies. So I love that
Okay.
about her. My middle child is a musician through and through. She can play by ear. She plays the guitar and the piano. All I don't know how she does it. There's like a million buttons. She's amazing at it. But that's how they let out their creative outlets whenever they're upset. And I encourage them whenever they do feel those heavy feelings, like just take a minute, go focus on something else that doesn't feel so big in the moment, something that you can control, and then we'll come back to it and we'll talk about it. And that helps a lot.
That's so smart. I wish other parents would do that as opposed to just saying, it's fine, man up. Just don't worry about it. When, okay, well, I'm still going to. So having a
Right.
parent be able to walk them through those emotions and also letting them know that they're going to be okay would
Mm-hmm.
be so helpful for so many children. And I don't know why we don't push this as parenting advice.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I put these books out, is to let kids know that yes, you're going to feel these things, but they're only things that are temporary, especially as you grow and you become more in control of your life and your circumstances. And you can kind of take life by the reins, 18, 19 years old at that cusp of freedom. And that's kind of where it shifts in my story from part 2 to part 3, just taking that damaged girl that has had time in the psychiatric ward, that's been heavily medicated for the past several years, that feels so lost, and a literal ghost girl, like just someone who just feels so unseen, unloved, and unheard, to this woman who's now empowering other people and lifting other people up and raising the whole next generation, 2 generations, actually, not to brag. I
That's
got
true,
such
though.
a big
That's
age
true.
gap.
That
There's
is.
2 generations of children in my house. So that's bragging rights, I guess, for that one. But
But
just to raise
I
them
couldn't
with,
do it. So
hey, 10 out of 10 recommend having teens and toddlers, because they're way more active than their 30 something mom. And they're much, it's much easier for them to chase down the toddler if something was to,
no.
she just decided to dart at the park or something. It's
And
like,
they're
oh,
all
can you go grab?
girls.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I couldn't imagine being a boy mom, but because I'm a photographer, so I deal with kids all the time, all the time. Um, and I love having girls. I cannot
Oh,
express that enough. I know that boys have their own special thing about them, and if it was in the plan to have a boy, I absolutely would have loved him too. But I have to say, I'm very happy to just be a girl mom. I know and understand them. I can relate to them so much, and I feel like my husband is so supportive in our daughters that it makes perfect sense for him to be a girl dad too. He's so kind and understanding and patient with emotions and body changes and things like that. So I love that we get to have these girls. And again, we have 2 generations in the house that we can build up to be just amazing women. And the world needs more amazing women.
I do. Now, your cover of your book is very haunting in of itself. That's what drew me into reading it was the cover of the book.
Yes.
And I do think that covers are important. That doesn't mean that that's everything. There are plenty of books that are fantastic that have very generic covers, but yours was very haunting. And I think I saw that you were the illustrator.
Yes, absolutely. So they're very basic drawings. It's nothing that I'm like super impressed with, but I will say that I wanted to tap into that eerie sort of grim-like illustrations. But the covers are pretty dark again because I'm not the best illustrator in the world.
No, they're beautiful. I love them.
Yeah, there's so many things to them that I just love so much. So like in part 1, you have little ghost girl here, which I'm so proud of. I think she's the feature here, but each book kind of has little clues in here as to what you're going to find in the book. There's little Easter eggs on each page that kind of lead to the next one. Like, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but the tree here, it actually straightens up more as the series continues. So it goes from this like winding, curvy, you don't know which direction it's going next, to this straight, narrow. It's just that
I didn't
symbolism that I
notice
wanted
that,
to
but a friend of
represent.
mine did because we went back and looked at the covers and she's like, "Have you noticed that this tree is on every cover?" And I was like, "I didn't." And she was like, "And that it
Yeah,
starts to grow straight." And I was like, I didn't. I wonder if that was on purpose." So you just answered
it
that question for
absolutely
me.
was. Yes. Yes. Well, I'll tell your friend I'm very appreciative that she did notice that. And there's also, like, in part 1, there's these it's hard to see, but I wanted it that way. It's dark and it's eerie, and that's the vibe that's going on here. So in part one on the covers, I drew in some almost Dementor type shapes that are kind of swirling up at the top. And then in parts two and in parts 2 and 3, you see this dark shadow on each cover. And in the second one, it's almost like a tall man figure. And then the second, it's a small childlike figure. And if you read the series, obviously that makes more sense.
It does.
It's describing my darkness and how it felt as a child, like a monster. It's bigger than me. It's consuming me. And then to this figure in existence that I know and I see and I can name, and it just is. It almost feels comfortable because it's just all that I've ever known. And then how that darkness kind of shrinks and evolves into something completely different.
So heavy. Now, what point did you realize that you weren't just coping with the issues that were happening, that you were actually surviving?
When I finally got to the right therapist, I would say that 100%. My current and last therapist that I've had, she's wonderful. She has really helped me understand my brain and how trauma shaped my brain. And she told me something that's just golden as far as advice. And I used to live my life in a rush, constantly in a rush. What should I be doing? And she calls it shitting all over yourself, which I love.
I love that.
I know. That's like how I remember it. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. Like I'm actively shooting on myself and I need to just chill out. So she said, if it feels like a rush, you need to slow down, because trauma victims oftentimes are feeling rushed because we're in a state of panic almost all the time. And we don't really realize that there's different parts of our brain. And I've always suffered from migraines, but I never really understood why. And the more that she started to explain to me how my brain chemistry was working, the more that my migraine diagnosis started to make more sense, because it happens in high stress environments and in times when I'm feeling high amounts of shame or high amounts of stress or anxiety or uncertainty. It always starts in the back of my neck, which is where your amygdala is. And that is the panic button of your brain.
It is. Fight or flight.
Yes. And I was not realizing that my brain activity was almost solely running on my amygdala, and I could feel it. Then starting to realize that your prefrontal cortex, when you allow logic into the conversation and you don't allow like self-hate or shame to run the show all the time, when you start to love yourself and you start to realize your self-worth, then your logical brain starts to kick in a little bit more. And with doing so, that was life-changing for me, to be able to see that and be like, oh my gosh, that's how I've lived my entire life.
It's exhausting.
It is 100%. So I'm very blessed in the fact that I am 35 and I've discovered all of this about myself and been able to really like process my trauma in ways that I don't think that every trauma survivor gets the opportunity to do in their lifetime.
Do you think that all of us kind of carry some kind of magic that we create in order to make things easier, especially the things that we were never supposed to carry in the first place?
Absolutely. I think that children, because I think that that's, so they say that children are resilient. And I will say that I think that their resilience is magic. Their ability to just muster through and pick up and keep going and deal with all these things that are being thrown at them with absolutely zero control. That's magic.
Yeah.
Now the tricky part is whenever they become adults.
Yeah, that's true.
And then especially if they become parents, because then you start to see yourself through your children. Sometimes that can build resentment unknowingly. Sometimes that can build even more amounts of shame or self-hate or self-doubt. But to be aware of all that and understand like your behaviors and your thinking and how your brain works and things like that. Not even someone who's been through complex trauma, but I think a lot of us are in fight or flight. I think a lot of us are overstimulated. A lot of us just don't reset our nervous systems enough. And we're constantly on the go, this and that, doubting ourselves, hating ourselves, and not giving ourselves enough time to reflect and sit with our feelings, allow our emotions. That's one thing I'm just now learning to do in life, is to allow emotions to come through me. It's like the going on a bear hunt book. Can't go over it, can't go around it, can't go under it. You got to go through it. So that's emotions, you got to allow them. Everyone always assumes that healing means that you're happy. No, healing means that you can be sad and it's okay. Healing means that you can be angry and that's okay too. And that it's a temporary feeling that you're going to get through. And yes, there will be moments of happiness too.
Sure.
But it's not letting your triggers run the show.
That actually brings me to the spells that are in your book, which I loved. What was the first one that I remember? It was the spell for remembering what was buried,
Yes,
where
that's
you were
my
like,
favorite.
get 1 hour, a photograph, a white candle in your mind, um,
You nailed it.
oh,
Yeah. And dirt. You need the
dirt
dirt.
of a place that you thought was home,
Yeah.
and your own voice.
Now that is metaphorical dirt, not physical dirt. So
Yeah.
that one was.
There was that one, and the one that was when the gaze feels too heavy.
Yes. When you feel like all eyes on you.
Yes. So
Yes.
those two, I think, because those were like right out the gate. If I remember correctly, they were
Mm-hmm.
both in
Yeah.
book one.
Yeah.
And I read that going, okay, so this is how this book's gonna be, because it's like right there out the gate. And that first one of remembering, I actually ended up doing that myself to kind of, I guess because I felt like I had to, because the book told me to. But
Sure. Yeah.
and I just do what I'm told.
Sure.
How have the spells in the book been received by others?
I will say that it's overwhelmingly positive. Everyone is like, this is such a nice little refresh.
It
Uh,
is.
yeah, just something to take your mind off of what you just read. It's super heavy and it gives you comfort that maybe the little girl survived that. And it doesn't weigh you down so much whenever you go into the next heavy topic. Because there's some very heavy
There are.
themes here. I made sure not to write anything that was too graphic or too hard to read. I kept everything childlike in the way that a child or a teen might describe it, in regards to the abuse. Luckily, in part 3, there's not really much abuse. There's just attempts at generational disrupt. I'm hearing it from other generations and how I need to live my life, and that's about the worst part of it. That the abuse gets in part 3, but in part 1 and 2, it's like
It's rough.
basically that's it. So the spells are really like lifesavers, a breath in between those really hard moments. So I think that a lot of readers really resonate with that and appreciate that. And the really neat thing about it is that they're not spells in the way that like witchcraft is. It's meditation.
Yes, and that's what I was gonna say. It reads like, when you first read it, like it's about to be some kind of magic spell, and then you
Mm-hmm.
realize it's really just a way for you to self-check in.
Yes. And that's a way that we can promote meditation, reflection, and awareness to the younger generation. And again, this is a series for 13 and up because of the heavy themes, but really it's like 13 through 99. Anybody that has that inner child, I think that this series is going to speak to you, especially if you've had trauma that you've dealt with or hard times that you've dealt with in your life. I feel like there's something for everyone to relate to. But I think like how cool to have created like meditative building blocks for children to understand how to tap into their emotions and their awareness, and to be able to look around a room and ground themselves by naming things or feelings or scents or sights or tastes. And that's all that the ingredients are in the spells. The directions, if you get to it, almost every single one has a positive affirmation that you repeat,
It does.
a mantra, something that's going to make you feel better about what just happened. And that's just helping readers do that themselves when they do go through something. Okay, this is really hard. What do I do next? Okay, well, I'm going to name 5 things in the room that I can see, that I can touch, that I can, go through the grounding exercises, and then they're going to, be able to have that positive self-talk back to them. And that's the spells. That's all it is.
And they're beautifully done. I have since used the first spell several times without even realizing that I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So it stays with you. I almost feel like these books should be like a required read for middle schoolers because it does
I've been
give that.
told that.
Yeah, because it goes through things. Because not only does it deal with abuse and trauma, and it can make people more empathetic to others who are dealing with things and make the kids who are dealing with it feel seen. But
Yes.
it's probably the first time in a book that I've actually like trauma dump. Okay, let's breathe. Take a breath. Calm down. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma dump. Take a breath. It's fine. Which is beautiful because it was so you've been through some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have to wonder, was there ever that moment where you were like, okay, yeah, I can't write this part?
Oh, there's tons. I still
Okay.
have a ton of stories on the inside that only my family knows. I really tried to hit on the topics that I felt like would be most impactful and that I can turn into a lesson for other people as well as my daughters. Um, I did put quite a bit out there. I was very honest and open and raw in a lot of things. But I mean, going through a story like this, if I literally wrote every single trauma I had been through, nobody would read it. It'd
A
be,
lot.
several Bibles stacked up. So I don't think that anyone would want to read that about my life. It was
I
really
would.
important
You
to
could write it down, I'd read
me.
it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was important to me to make this readable and easily digestible for, again, 13 and up. And I also understand as a trauma victim and somebody who would relate to these stories is that sometimes sitting down and reading isn't quite a luxury that we get afforded often because of the panic that we're constantly in. It's hard to settle. So I didn't want to overwhelm readers with too much trauma, too graphic of a scene, or too many characters. If you realize, like, I'm not even named, my name is not in this book at all, unless if it's talking about the author or the front cover. I left my name out. It's just from my perspective. My mom, I think she only gets named once or twice. My dad is dad all the way through. My brother is my brother, my nanny, my papa. It's just titles. And then if I did use somebody's name, in real life, I changed their name just for privacy purposes. Like I gave my daughters all fake names, as well as my husband. He picked his name. So everybody who is important to me, I made sure to include in the series, but I didn't want to overwhelm readers with like too big of a character list.
I actually like that the books were small
Mm-hmm.
because you're taking it in small doses. And it's especially if you're going to be a younger individual reading this, you don't feel so overwhelmed that you're like, this is a 500-page book and I can't get through it.
Yes.
It's like little novellas that can build, but you're
Yes.
actually building to something that's positive. But it does, I just like the whole setup of what you're doing. I think
Thank
it's
you.
just been done so beautifully. I really like the meditation. I like to call them spells because it makes me happy. Spells in between because it's short, but it's impactful. It's sad, but then you have the moment that you can reflect, especially knowing that the author who's writing it is okay.
Right.
And that makes it so much easier to read.
Yeah.
Were there moments where the memories were just so painful? And this is a stupid question. I am aware of this, that they
No.
were so painful that you had to like change a part of the story in order to deal with the trauma and the healing part of it?
Absolutely. So I'll say that my story in here is 95% truth, 5% what I wanted it to be. Um, of course, the darkness that I had described wasn't actually a figure or
Right.
anything that I physically saw with my eyeballs. It was something that I felt. It was the monster under my bed. It was the cardigan that I wore through addiction. It was what was passing me bottles during postpartum depression. It's just this monster darkness figure that's, of course, made up. But it is that feeling that you feel on the inside. So it's like, it's metaphorical. And then there's several scenes throughout that maybe it didn't happen exactly like that. Maybe I wasn't so quick-witted. Maybe I didn't have that reply back. Maybe I was just the quiet little ghost girl that I always had been and always felt like I would be. And I took it and I didn't say anything back. And in the book, I got to. So that's kind of the only thing that I would say that has changed, like, especially in part 2, the chapter, I think it's 19, it's titled Tick, Tick, Boom. It's kind of like the climax of what happens in part 2, the big secret that gets revealed. I could tell you, I didn't get to say what I wanted to say until I wrote this book.
Nice.
So that exchange was very freeing for me in the book. But I can say that the real exchange stuck with me for a really long time, and what I should have and could have said, and finally got the chance to.
That's so freeing. That's why I think when I write things, whenever we encourage people to write things down, it gives you the chance to say those things
Yes.
that you didn't get to say before.
Because your thoughts are valid.
Yes.
But, unless if you've actually written them down, it doesn't feel very valid. They're just floating in your head.
Yeah.
But and you see them on paper, you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I feel
no
this.
wonder
It's
I'm
not
so messed
here. Yes, exactly. It gives you validation.
That's. Is there, if you could give this book to the younger version, just the first book to the younger version of you, how do you think she would take that?
She'd be amazed. I know that. I know that I, as a younger girl, would just be like, what? You've done this? You get to be a photographer? You get to be a mom? You have a husband? You're not alone? That's amazing. I love that. So just knowing, all of that, I think that younger me would be super proud. But to know that I've written down my story, again, that was something that has always stuck with me. I always felt like for the longest time, this is something I need to do, is write down my story. It's so interesting and weird. I mean, like, the whole climax of part 2, like, who do you know? Who do you know who goes through that as a child? That's insanity. So, my mom leaving me for the circus, that big dark secret throughout, and then somehow still becoming a normal functioning human being that's not like totally messed up. You know what I mean? Like,
And
literally.
this is why I think it should be required for middle school kids to read, because it can give hope.
Yes, it's letting you know that you don't have to become a product of your circumstances, that you don't have to run to addiction to face your demons. You can face them head on, and there's more creative outlets that you can pursue that's going to benefit you way more than following down some rabbit hole, or unfortunately following down the trails that you might have seen before you. Just continuing those cycles. And I see it a lot, especially in my area. I'm in the Southern Appalachian region, and there's a lot of drug use. There's a lot of broken families. There's a lot of issues with family systems here in East Tennessee. So I feel like it's such an important read. And I would be honored if they would make it required reading. That would be amazing.
They should. I'm not that far from you. I didn't live here when the big snow of 93 happened. I was in Chicago, so I didn't feel bad for you people at all. But
you're like, you finally get some snow. You don't know what snow is.
And then I moved down, and they're like, there's been 3 feet of snow. And I was like, I just shoveled 3 feet of snow out of the driveway, and the snow plow just came and pushed it right back up. And then I realized when I moved to the South, they're not equipped.
Happen. Yeah, that doesn't happen here.
They don't know how to do that. No wonder. And I remember my dad came down to the South, that he was in the southern region around the time that we were in Illinois. And he had taken the snow shovel out of the back of his vehicle and said, I'm going to the sunny South. I'm not going to need this. And then he ended up calling, asking where the snow shovel was. And we were like, oh, you don't need it. You're going to the sunny South. And he was like, yeah, except for there's 3 feet of snow outside. And I was like, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Yeah. Yeah.
The snowplow is pushing stuff right now. Yeah, it's very different
Hmm.
here. And like when the big ice Mageddon that happened a couple of years ago, where like everything froze,
Yeah.
the South can't handle it.
No, no,
Uh,
no. We freak out. We go and buy all the toilet paper, all the bread,
all the bread and
and
milk.
yeah, just sit on it, I
What are we
guess. I don't
doing? Are we
know.
making milk sandwiches? What are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what
Yeah.
does it mean
100%.
in your life to be like, I'm finally able to come home to yourself after this childhood that you experienced? Because just the fact that your mom left you for the circus is so wild to me.
Yeah. Still wrapping your brain around that one,
I
huh?
am, because I thought that was a metaphor.
No, no, baby. That's 100% legit. Yeah. I
I
wish it
really
was.
did think
I
that
wish
was,
it was.
I really thought
No.
that.
Yeah. 100% the traveling circus. And in,
That really does change that whole scenario of how I read it.
yeah, no, the whole instance where my dad, it was like chapter 18 titled Tightrope, where my dad took me to the to the circus, to the carnival where she was. 100% legit. I really did. There, I did see like the carnies and the broken down rides, and just like, what, this is not what I envisioned for this magical circus that you were embarking on, my mother. What are you doing? So that was a that's legit. I wish it was a metaphor. Like, who else? Who else? And I feel like I was given this story for this purpose. I really do. I really do. As crazy as it is, I know that trauma victims hate to hear everything happens for a
Everything
reason.
happens for a reason. Yeah.
I get that. I get that, boo. I really do. But I really do feel like this happened for this reason, so that I could show other people that, in this long laundry list of traumas, you could still be normal. You
Yeah.
could still, as normal can be, right? Like, you can still take accountability and build awareness and resilience and still have the life that you always wanted, regardless of how messed up everything was for you when everything was out of your control.
You really do speak to not just the obvious traumas that are shown, but a lot of trauma that isn't always visible.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think, well, A, why was it important for you to tell that story? And I think I know the answer to that because it needs to be told so other people can relate. But why do you think that's oftentimes so overlooked in the first place? Why do we always concentrate on the I can see trauma as opposed to the what I can't see?
I really think that that's shifting in our culture. I really do, with our generation of parents that's coming through, that I feel like we're starting to empathize with kids a lot more. It's not this kids versus parents mentality. I
Sure.
think a lot more parents are on board with being on their kids' team and not this like divisive. I think that families, the ones that are surviving, the ones that aren't broken, I think that they are holding on tighter. Um, so I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Okay. Why was it important for you to write about the invisible trauma?
Yeah, because that I feel like is the most impactful. I feel like the things that we can't say, that's what sticks with us the most. It's easy to say, "Oh, I was in a car accident and this happened, and I'm nervous about this," and people are more open about that because it was physically something that happened, so they're going to be open about that. But if it's like feeling unseen or unheard or whatever, they're going to be like, "Oh, well, they don't really care about my feelings then, or they don't really care about my story. They have their own thing going on." And I agree, they do. Everybody has their own things going on, but that doesn't mean that we can't relate.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that we can't, especially like journal and write about how we're feeling. Because that's something that will always listen, is the pen and paper. It'll always be there for you.
Yeah.
It's always going to pick up the slack, and it's always going to absorb it all in. So, just utilize it. I think that creativity and expressing yourself is really key to healing a lot of those invisible wounds.
Yeah, see, I think where you're doing something healthy with it, and I love my parents. I mean, they're no longer with us. They weren't bad parents. I think they both had their own invisible trauma that they never dealt with, so it was easy to carry that tradition forward with
Hmm.
their children. And they weren't bad people. They just didn't realize it. And when I said to somebody recently, I would rather someone punch me in the face than tell me that you're disappointed in me or that you're ashamed of me. I would rather be punched in the face 100 times over than to hear that from my parents. It's, I think, because at least physical, is going to heal. But
Yeah.
the invisible things that takes a long time to heal, if
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah, it really does. I often tell people, please don't compare your childhood with mine. Mine was an extreme. Everybody has their moments of feeling unseen or unheard, and my story doesn't invalidate your story.
Right.
It, if anything, validates your story and understanding that, it's okay to feel this way. Everybody feels this way. It's important to, again, name your emotions and be aware of that. I think that awareness is key in healing a lot of the things that bother us. And you're acknowledging that your parents were good parents. They gave you the best childhood that they could give
They
you, and
could,
that's
exactly.
that's amazing. I honestly have come to terms with that as well. My parents gave me the best that they could. It was shit. I'm sorry.
No, it's
It
fine.
wasn't great, but they did what they could, and I'm going to do what I can, and what I know I can do is great. So I'm not going to settle for anything less, and that's okay. Um, I don't harbor resentment for anyone that I wrote in my stories. I understand that my mom did not have a support system. I understand that she was mentally ill and still is mentally ill. I understand that my dad battled addiction heavily and that he tried. I know that. And I love him for that. I have very mixed feelings with a lot of characters that I've written about, a lot of people in my life, but at the end of the day, I don't have resentment. That does me no good at all.
That's so true. And I'm going to relate in a very different way. But you said that you don't have to go through what you went through specifically to still have those feelings. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like if, and I, people all, I have children who have special needs, and one of mine has seizures. And I remember someone telling me, oh my gosh, that's so terrible. I can't even imagine dealing with that. And I was kind of like, no, you can. Has your child ever fallen and broken their arm? Because the feeling of the panic and
Mm-hmm.
feeling helpless is the exact same. The
It's
situation is
universal.
the same, but situation can be 1,000 times differently. But that feeling inside is
The
universal. So,
feeling, yes.
and that's where I really relate. Because even though there were things in your books that I related to on a very personal level, there were also things that I knew that I had not experienced, but I still understood the feeling because I could relate something else in my mind to it. And I noticed when I was kind of looking through some of your reviews that a lot of people were talking about how they were starting to remember things from their own childhood. And it
Mm-hmm.
makes me wonder, how does that feel when you know that you're actually opening the doors for other individuals to dig deep into their own feelings and trauma?
It's amazing. I will say a couple of chapters, especially in part one, were repressed memories that presented themselves later in adulthood. Our brains are amazing at protecting us. There's two chapters in particular that came to me through a repressed memory, and it was haunting. It was some two instances that I completely blocked out until I became an adult, and then I had to face them. For a couple of years, it really weighed on me. And it's still hard to think about, to relate to tap back into, and those are the two hardest chapters to read about in part one. Chapter 12, Iron Grip, where my mother physically abused me, and then in chapter 15, Smothering Fog, where I'm sexually abused by a stranger in my own house. So those instances are super heavy. They're always going to be. They're always going to stick with me the hardest. Um, but it's just finding your way to cope with that and to know that I'm not alone. I know that I'm not the only child that ever was abused. And I know that there's other people that are going to feel this way and they're going to read this and they're going to say, oh my gosh, I remember this. I felt this way too. This brings back this memory. And I hope that it's not triggering in the sense that it contributes to like the dismantle of their core belief, their self-worth. I hope that it reminds them that they're resilient and they're amazing, and that, you know, that they can too face those ghosts, those demons, those hauntings, and get through it. That they don't have to continue to carry all of that with them. They can let go of that part of their story in a healthy and healing way.
You're such a beautiful person.
Oh, thank you.
You really are.
That.
And it's
you
it's
are.
a little. I'm just gonna no. I don't like getting emotional. I don't do that.
I understand.
When your part one feels like you're stepping into the dark, without giving too much away, what do you want the readers to know when they finish that first book and it's so dark and it's so heavy as they move on through the series?
Oh gosh. Well, I know that the end of part one leaves off with almost the sense that there's hope. And then like the last paragraph is like, wait a minute.
Yeah, that killed, by the way, rude.
Yeah.
I immediately read 2 and 3 because that last paragraph of the first book, I was like, oh, you dirty.
Like, who is this?
Yeah.
Who is this? What's going on here? Yes. So I wanted to do that, and because that really did feel like a monumental shift in my life. You know, going from living on that family compound to then living with my dad and then into adulthood, my life has always felt like it's in 3 parts. So it always made sense to me to write it in those 3 parts. Yeah, but for somebody that's reading part 1 and gets to that and just is like, oh my gosh, is she going to be okay? You know, I encourage you, keep reading. Yeah. And obviously, you know, I'm here today, and I'm here to tell you that obviously I'm fine. The story's all about me. But again, tucked in between these pages, there's so many relatable topics that I feel like there's going to be so much that speaks to other people. Like I've heard, like you said, part 2 is your favorite. I've heard people rave about part 1. I've heard people scream about part 3. So
part 3 was very relatable, but like part 2 was to my core. I am that girl.
Yes. Yeah. It brings out that teenage angsty feeling of trying to find your own voice in the world and feeling less than and unheard, and really just trying to muster through the day and high school and all of the things. Yeah. Part 2 is very heavy.
It is, but I really appreciated how you handled the entire series, because even though you didn't shy away from the heavy topics, because it would be hard to write about your own physical abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, sexual abuse, just the constant barrage of attacking the inside of who you are and your soul from all different angles. You handled it so beautifully, but I have to wonder now, how do the people who are in your life who are in the book, have they read it?
I have no idea, nor do I really care. Okay. I hope so, especially in part 2. That main character, Retta, I hope she's read it. That'd be
not just gonna send him a copy.
Yeah, I've thought about that. No, I will say that a majority of the people, unfortunately, in the series that I'm writing about is dead. My mother's still living, and I haven't spoken to her in years. I'm sure that people in my family are aware that I've written my books. I've kind of always been the black sheep, but in a positive way in my family. I've just not been the one that's been complacent in the abuse. It's not just me that's been abused in my family. It's I got cousins that relate heavily to my story, that understand these characters that I'm talking about more so. So I will say in that aspect, my cousins have been really supportive. They understand what I'm going through. I feel like, cousins, we bond, and we've kind of seen the same things growing up more so. I won't say all my cousins. I know that there's some that's not too happy with me. And again, I don't care. Um, but
I
I,
like
I
it.
will say it's been mostly crickets from my family, and that's okay. I want and need nothing from them.
What about the people who did not know this about your life, who have then read it? People who know you now, and
Mm-hmm.
then as this person who has found some sort of peace, who has a life and a family, and you're a mother and a photographer and a wife, and you're all these amazing things. When they have read it, were they surprised?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So funny enough, I'll tell you about this one particular reader slash bestie. She was literally my neighbor growing up with my dad. So when we moved into that house on School Avenue that I had wrote about, she was our next door neighbor. And I have known her since the fourth grade. Fourth grade, she moved in, and we're still really good friends. We go out to eat often. Our kids play together. We're all part of the same homeschool co-op. So she's a great friend. She read the series and she was like, Barb, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't
Yeah.
you tell me any of this was going on? I didn't realize that this was um that your life had been so hard. Like you just kind of joked about it. And I did. I 100% joked about it, and I would make super light of it, and
That's
not
what you do.
everybody. Yeah. Yeah, I was the class clown in regards to my life story. I would joke like, "Oh yeah, my mom left me for the circus," and people would think that's a joke, but it was legitimately true. Um, I saw at an early age how uncomfortable the truth would make people, so I just kind of kept it to myself. So her reading my story, being someone who literally she didn't make the book. Again, I wanted to keep the character list very short. So she didn't make the book, but for her to read it and know me so well and to not really know all of this about me was just like, oh my, like she said it made her want to just give me a hug. Um, and that's what I've heard pretty consistently from people who know me and have read the books is like, I had no idea. I just wanted to give you a hug throughout the whole book and wonder if you're going to be okay. But then I know you and I know you're okay. So that was, even my husband,
Yeah,
I
that was
will
my next
say. So
question.
yeah. So he did not know much of this. I mean, part three, obviously he did because he comes in chapter two. Um, but the
Surprise,
majority of this
honey.
stuff he did not know. And if he did know, he knew highlights. He didn't know how I was feeling in that moment, how that really just like drained me, how that I really like he could envision my story. He was the first person I read everything to. As I was writing, I would read it. He's my sounding board, always has been, always will be. So to see how my story was even affecting him in the aspect of like understanding me more and like, oh my gosh, of course, you have insecurities about this. Of course, this is triggering to you. Of course, this. So it really helped him understand my triggers better, and really just helped understand me and my past again that I was so bad about just dismissing and laughing off and not diving into and just running from, to finally be able to face it and write it down and share it with my husband, with my girls, with my friends, and the world. Um, I think a lot of people just learn a lot about me that I just never, never talked about. I just held it in.
Did he have a hard time? I know because my husband was reading my book, and at some point I was like, "Are you ever going to finish it?" And he said, "I don't know why, but I'm nervous because I know that you wrote yourself into a lot of this, and I see where I think this may be going, and I'm not sure I want to read that if that's where it's
Yeah.
going." And I was like, "But I'm here. It's not like there's."
Right. Yeah. It's a story.
It's a story. Yes, it had
But he
aspects,
loves
but
you so much.
that was his. I think it's because he can't read, but he says it's because he was worried about the trauma that may come out of it. But I like to tease him that it's because he can't read. But I wonder, like, does your husband does he feel differently towards now, like towards you now, having known
I
the
would say
full
definitely
truth?
I would say, well, see, the difference is too, I didn't hand him my manuscript. I literally read it out loud to
So
him
he was
as I was
dealing with the
writing it.
trauma as you were going.
Yeah,
Okay,
like
that makes
tears
sense.
and all. We were both just boohooing through the whole book together. So it was a really neat experience to have with my partner in life to be able to go through my life story start to finish and really dive into how I was feeling and what really hurt the most and how I was able to like handle all of that. So I
It's
would
like
say that
couples
it brought
therapy.
us, it really was. It again helped him understand me more. It helped him understand his inner child more and listening to those sensations and those desires and those feelings that we all get whenever that inner child is taking the driver's seat when we're in that panic mode and we're letting the inner child take control, and it's essentially like letting an 8-year-old drive the car, you know. So I think that he's understanding that too, and a lot about just self-reflection on his part and wanting to make sure that he's being the best father and best husband that he can be. And I think that that's really just encouraged that in our relationship too. So it was very connecting for both of us to go through this, and I'm immensely appreciative of him for being that sounding board. He's actually, I'm in the middle of recording my audiobook, and he's producing it. So he's going to piece it all together for me, edit it, and make it into one beautiful audiobook that I get to put out into the world. But he's been such a great partner in that anytime I'm like, I'm unsure about this, he's like, I got you. I'm right there. I'll help out. So immensely appreciative of him.
This has been such a pleasure to talk to you and actually see that you're doing well. And I know that this book could give so many people hope, but is there something else coming down besides the audiobook? Are you going to
Yeah.
continue writing?
My daughter actually asked me this question earlier today, my middle child. She's my little interviewer. She's constantly asking questions, which I love. Keeps me on my toes.
Get you ready for the
Um,
interviews.
I am a full-time photographer, like my actual real life job. I own a studio here in East Tennessee. That keeps me so busy, and it's so fulfilling to be able to creatively dive into my work. It's something I love so much. Um, and writing my life story was a goal of mine for me right now. I'm not saying that it's totally off the table. I just, unless if it's like personally that I'm writing in my journal or poems or notes, I don't see myself professionally writing much more in the future. I'm not saying ever, at least in this part, in this season of my life. You know, I've got the photography studio, I'm homeschooling, I've got teens and toddlers, and it's a lot. So I don't want to put too much on myself. I know by even releasing this book that that's one more hat that I'm wearing, which I love, and I'm appreciative that I get to do this, and that there's platforms for people like me. I appreciate that. But I just don't know that unless if it was something involving this series that I would be willing to do anything else more professionally in writing. Now, with the series, 100% want to make it an audiobook. I would love to make it into one hardback special edition. That's a goal. And then I would just be enamored if I would be able to make this into a graphic novel or an animated series, or because I feel like it has that potential.
It does.
So if that came to fruition, like that would be amazing. And I think in that aspect, that's as far as like projects go, that's what I would be willing to do, is to nurture this story more, to get it out to more people rather than shifting that creative focus to something else.
Barbara, I can't lie, that makes me unhappy. I mean,
I understand.
I
I've heard that.
appreciate the family thing. I get it, but
Yeah.
like you write in a way that just kind of sucks you into it, and I don't that doesn't make me happy at all.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I know, I know. Now I do plan on adding, like, beefing up my hardback. If I end up doing a hardback and special edition, I'm going to add some like untold stories in there. So Jeff, definitely, be on the lookout for that. I know right now my main focus is this audiobook. I'm just now discovering my voice and how I want it to be read. And that's trickier than it sounds.
No, I've done an audiobook. It's no joke.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
no
it's tough
joke.
stuff. So I'm kind of getting my hands dirty with it and understanding the realm of everything. So once that project gets done, then I might start working more into the hardback aspect and marketing that differently. Um, and again, just pushing this story because I just believe in it so much, and I feel like the more that I push it, the more it'll get into the people's hands that need it the most.
And there are definitely a lot of people who need it. Like I said, I passed it to a friend. I'm about to gift it to somebody. I'm about to gift the paperback versions to somebody who I think would
Thank
benefit
you.
from it. This is probably one of the most, you and John Bromfield both have made, well, and Brian Mulliner have made me like have a whole big introspective moment in my life, but I read yours first. So it hit much harder than I thought it was going to. I don't know what I thought I was getting into when I read it, but I really didn't because I don't like to know. I just want to read it.
Yeah.
But you do list like trigger warnings.
Hmm.
And I'm glad I didn't read them because I probably wouldn't have read it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so well done. I think that our next goal should be how do we get this into the hands of every middle schooler?
Yes. Yes. I've been working with some members of the AAMFT, so the American Association of Marriage and Family Therapists. They love the series. I've been working with them and trying to advocate for this to be a mental health resource for like therapists and school counselors. Um, so I'm pushing as hard as I can as far as trying to get it out there into the hands that, again, I think just need it the most. I really do feel like I don't particularly enjoy tooting my own horn, but I will say that I do feel like this series can be very beneficial for a lot of youth and 30, 40, 50 somethings that still are holding on to things that are bothering them from their childhood. Because just because you were a child and you were resilient in that sense of magic, what we were talking about before, that doesn't mean that it doesn't bother you as an adult. So it's completely valid that, if your mother beat you, that you're upset about it still, even if you're a 50-year-old woman or a 60-year-old man that's been drinking half of his life, you're going to read this and maybe start to reflect on how your children felt. Um, I really feel like there's something for everyone here. There's so many emotions in life that we all get to experience, but I think a lot of the yucky ones we just try to run from, we bury, we don't face. And this book faces them all.
I do. I
I
think you
feel
should just
like,
go
yeah,
ahead and toot, 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 toot. Just toot the horn, girl. It's okay. You deserve
thank
it. Toot the
you.
horn. It's and I've read a lot of indie authors over the past, like since January. I've read more books in 3 months than I have read probably in the past 3 years. Um, yeah, this one was so unique and different. And now that I know that a lot of that was not metaphorical, I kind of want to read it again with a different viewpoint. So,
Yeah,
yeah, because yeah, I really appreciate what you did. I'm glad that I got a chance to come across it. I'm glad that you decided to come and talk to me. Um,
absolutely. Thank you for
it's,
having me.
oh, I've enjoyed it immensely. Yeah, I want everybody to read your book. So go and get the book. You've got a website?
Yes, hauntedlight.com. You can go there and request signed sets. It also takes you to my Amazon listing. So the story is available on Kindle Unlimited or in paperback on Amazon too.
And it's always great if you read indie authors' books to leave a review.
Yes, yes. Honestly, if I'm being honest here, I've had hundreds of sales, but I have less than 15 reviews.
Same.
So I know a lot of people that have read it personally and just not left a review. And a lot of people just aren't reviewers naturally. And I get that. But I deeply appreciate, even if it's something that's not for you, just to put it out there. Just the more that it's talked about, the more that it's seen, the more likely it could get into the hands that it would benefit someone.
Yeah.
So reviews are everything. You're absolutely right.
They really are. And do not be afraid to gift this to somebody, because even though they may be offended that you felt like this is the kind of book they should read, they're going to appreciate it in the end. Because when I let my friend read it, she was like, I don't need to read about child abuse. And I was like, no, you do.
Yeah.
And she walked away from that thinking, wow, I'm glad I read that. I'm now
Yes.
trying to encourage her to leave a review.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much.
This has been great. I will make sure that all of your stuff is on the screen and how to find you. Please go out and get this books. And yeah, thank you for writing it and having the courage just to be able to do it, because a lot of people wouldn't have that kind of courage. So bravo
Thank
to you,
you.
and we'll toot your horn for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. I really do.
I'm also glad that you're not some old lady that I would have had to tiptoe around, because you were very honest, and I
Oh
appreciate an
yeah.
open, honest conversation. Not that there's anything wrong with old ladies. I'm an old lady, but you know, Barbara's.
Well, if it helps you, so like I was actually named after my nanny that's in the book. I have her name. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
See, all I think about is the Night of the Living Dead, when they're like, Barbara. Is that what it was? Like the guy was walking around the cemetery saying Barbara over. That name has a triggering effect. But at least now I know that you are a young, strong,
Yes.
capable woman, and that you survived hell and back, and you're an inspiration.
Live to write about it.
You live to tell the tale.
I did. Yes.
Thank you, Barbara, so much for giving me your time. I appreciate you, and we will
Thank you, Amara. I appreciate you.
thanks. You're so sweet. All right. I'm gonna go have an emotional breakdown on my own. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.